quick update of the mods and things that I've done on the bike since my last video. You can kind of see a few things. I'll just go over a full overview of what I have done at this current time, and kind of use this as like a stepping stone for further videos and things that I install. I do have new brakes on the way and a new rear sprocket, so I'm going to install those. I'm not sure if they're going to come pre-bled or not, so I don't know if I'm going to have to drop the motor. If they're not pre-bled, I probably won't drop the motor to do them, but if they are pre-bled, I don't want to mess with that, so I'll just drop the motor and do it like I did on the last E-Ride when we did the brake install. So, all right, we'll start at the top. So far, I got a light. I do not recommend this light. I just got it. It's kind of a weird, it doesn't give you a big, wide open beam of light. It's almost like a very weird spotlight. It's hard to explain. It's almost like half of it only works at half the time. Actually, let me turn it on, and it's just, it's you know, it's clear, but it's also yellow. But when you see it out shining on something, it actually looks just like an oval. I don't know. It's just not good. The last light I bought on Amazon was a yellow Baja Design knockoff, and it was far better. Far better. Didn't have a really spotlight, but it lit up most of the woods. And I will go back to that in a heartbeat. I'm going to try it in a clear, because when we were riding through the woods with the group always complains about my light being yellow versus theirs, and it does something weird. So I'm going to try. That's why I got this light, was to try a clear light, but it's not even nowhere near good enough to where I would feel comfortable going off of it. So would not buy it. I bought it on Amazon. It is yellow and clear, as you could see. And running the Luna 1821 setup. There was a bunch of questions if this would fit on my fork, but I went YOLO with it and got it, and no real issues. There is some gaps there, so I don't know what people are talking about. Maybe through the stroke it could hit, but you know, there was full droop right now, so the wheel's only going up. It's not coming out anymore, so I don't know. But it works, so anybody looking. I did go with the Amazon riser again. I was looking at going with the full Warp 9 kit, and a couple other ones. I actually bought a grit shift heavy hitter adapter, and I decided to stay with my Warp 9 bars, but I added 25 millimeters of rise under the JFG Racing mount. Something I did have to do to make this mount fit with these carbon spacers is, I actually did it right here on an aluminum spacer just to show. I have a belt sander. The clearance between the spacers and the mount is very tight, and you can't really get them in there. So even with everything loose, getting the spacers in there was a bear. I made it happen one time on the other bike. This one was off a little more. So you got to do this. And then it's like it's perfect. You can see the carbon spacers. Those are AliExpress as well. So I also now have an ebmx 9000 V2. A lot of things that people talk about is the thumb regen. I actually think I may go away from a rear brake, hand brake, and go to a foot brake only, just for the simple fact that I do have my regen up on the grip. I feel that me coming from the BMX and the mountain bike world, I don't have to worry about missing a foot brake right now. But every motocross guy I talk to that gets on my bike says it's the weirdest thing ever, and I need to go to a foot brake, give it a shot. So I think I'm going to do that. I wanted to do the dual caliper setup, but I didn't want it to be gaudy and big and bulky for woods riding. So the more and more I'm thinking about it, I may just go to the rear brake without a handbrake and leave the thumb regen there. I like that. The ebmx has been so amazing. I can't say anything bad about it. The install there's a lot of wires. My bike has no tilt sensors, no brake sensors, none of that. So there's a lot of stuff that's not used. I think what I'm going to do next is take the harness out, and I'm going to trim off whatever I don't use. I power wash this bike, so I'm kind of nervous about having open pins into the computer, so I'm not sure how I'm going to pull that off, if I'm going to take the wire and the pin out, or if I'm just going to snip the wire at the plug that goes into the ebmx harness. But there's a ton of stuff that's not used. The horn's not even used anymore because you don't have hand controls. I don't really need a horn. A horn was great in some other situations, but I'm going to put a plate over it and get rid of it. I want this thing to be as light as possible with as little as possible. So if we're ever working on it in the woods, there's not a ton of troubleshooting we have to pull in and out of, because there's a ton of wires and stuff stuffed in the neck of the thing, the frame. So that was the downside, but other than that, the ebmx has been amazing. I love it. There's so many small features. Honestly, it's too much power, or it's a lot of power to kind of tame. But the small things that really I liked that it gave me was, one of the main things is I could take my speed limiter off for eco. I don't need a ton of mile an hour in the woods, but I felt that the 28, sometimes I would be right up against that, where anybody that has one of these bikes, right before you hit the 28 mile an hour in eco limit, it almost falls on its face, like it doesn't have enough power anyways. So with this bike in the ebmx, I have 6 modes. Street 1, Street 2, Street 3. Then I have Race 1, Race 2, and Race 3. And those are all programmable. Right now, I'm currently running them on the kilowatt that ebmx sets it up, because it's pretty well set up to where you click your eRide Pro, you click your battery, you're running the factory battery, and their stock basic harness, and it sets everything up. And it is flawless. I can't, you go to the street mode and you can set a mile per hour limit. And obviously mine wasn't enough, so I put it up to around 50 to 55. What I've noticed is I've measured my rear tire to 635 millimeters high, I believe, and that is the Luna wheel. And I put the correct gear ratio and everything in the bike. And if I set the speed limit to 55, I'll only see 50 on my hand control. So I don't know if that's I don't have enough kilowatts to get it all the way up there, because as soon as I click into the next mode, it seems like it'll go to whatever it was. Because I originally had it at 35 and I set the speed at 30, and I didn't like that. I wanted more. So I went to 45, but it only gave me 40. I think I went to 50 or 55, and I'm at 45. And that seems to be the magic. I don't need that much more, but it's just how it runs up past 30 mile an hour now. And that's obviously, I don't know if that's true 30 mile an hour or just what I feel. I didn't like, there are certain spots where I was doing hill climbs and I needed a little more, and I just couldn't with the eco. So the Street 1 here has been amazing. I'm getting ready to do a long range test just to see. I'm not really sure right now. This does have a battery bar on the controller, and it does go down as the voltage goes down. So people say that it's more efficient, so the voltage should be better as long as I can keep my hand out of it. I've gotten 42 miles with a factory controller. I think I can get much further with this, given the same, and I'm talking road riding, just me and my buddies going out for a night and eco through the town. We rode to downtown Columbus, and I was 42 miles on a charge. I think I got home around 11% battery left. So, I mean, it did really well for the size that I am. Another big feature, besides the speed limit on the ebmx that we don't talk about, nobody says, is this thing has a neutral and it has reverse. The big thing for me is neutral. I'll be sitting in the woods, whether I'm hanging out, I'm on my bike, and somebody's going to walk up and they just want to feel, they always grab the throttle. Like when we're in the BMX world, the first thing you do when you walk up to your kid's buddy or your factory dad buddy down the street, his bike, you grab their brakes. Well, I don't know what it is, but in the motocross world, they grab the throttle. And I'm like, what the heck? So it's different for people because these e-bikes are on. And they go shooting out from under us like it's a whole ordeal when it happens. So this thing has a neutral. It is currently in Street 0, and you can see I got nothing. It's amazing. I didn't like it at first because whenever you turn it off and then you power it back on, give it a second to shut off, it automatically goes into neutral. Now, I've got it set up to where it'll go back into continuous, so if I was in street, it'll stay in street. You can program it to go back to what, say I've been race and I shut the bike off, you can program it to go back to street automatically. I've got it set to be continuous, so it's automatically going to go in what I had it in, but it goes into neutral. So that alone is a big safety because I don't run a kickstand sensor, I don't run tilt sensors or nothing. So if I have the kickstand down and the bike on, because a lot of times when I was in factory controller, if you shut the bike off, it resets your mileage, your trip. So when we were doing a big ride and I needed to see how far I was and what I was doing, I never shut my bike off. Even when Nick's bike broke down the other night, we never shut my bike off. It was a big ordeal to shut my bike off if I would lose my mileage, because one of us has to keep our miles on to see. We knew, like, hey, at this distance, we needed to start getting home. So, like, that was a big problem, leaving it on, so people would always grab it and rip it. Same situation here. We want to leave the trip set, but I can leave it in, when I come to a stop, I can put it in 0, which is neutral, and I don't have to worry about anybody walking by and just grabbing the throttle just to see what it feels like. Then the reverse is set to 50%, which sounds like a lot, but it is not. I actually like it. I didn't think I would use it. I thought it was corny and kind of goofy. But since I use this to commute at like the BMX races, I'll park it into some spot, nose in, to where it's tight and it's behind the bleachers. And then I'll come back to get on it and I reverse right out. I don't have to push it out or nothing. I can get on it and I can just back right out of where I'm going. So the power is the last important thing. I don't think this bike needed more power. I like that I have more control over the power. But Street 1 is close to Eco. Street 2, I would say, is way more than Eco. Probably a little less than, probably about Sport, I would say. And then Street 3 is going to be what the turbo button is. And it's okay. It's fast. You know, with the turbo button before, it was kind of violent. But the race modes on this bike are crazy. They're, in my opinion, for the riding that I've been doing, it was unusable. Now, I haven't been on a motocross track. I'm just woods riding and then riding around the neighborhood with the kids and on bike paths. So anything in race mode, you might as well it's just a lot. I can see on a motocross track, if you really wanted to stretch its legs and do some stuff, that's the way I would go. But I love all the controllability, the safeties that it has, the efficiency. I'm kind of nervous to wash the bike with that on it. Like I bought the factory controller, I power washed it. I don't know that I'm going to do that with this ebmx. I haven't gotten it dirty enough to where it had to be done. So I'm getting ready to take it back apart anyways and heat shrink a bunch of stuff. And we've had a bunch of rain, so I haven't ridden. So I think that needs to, I want to go through and heat shrink, marine shrink, everything. And when I do this harness build, so I want it to be completely, if I submerge it or we get caught in the rain, I don't want to worry about it. I want to be able to clean it off and keep it moving because I do not like it sitting in my shop. Like I was weird about my side-by-side sitting in my shop dirty. I don't like this sitting in my shop dirty. I always try to clean it as soon as I get home, wipe it down, make sure it's good. So the ebmx, I highly recommend. I don't know that it would be a first thing I would buy, but it's definitely on the list. And I think with the brakes already coming, I think my fork is the next big thing. I've been looking at batteries for range, not really for power, but it seems like the next limiting factor on this bike is the battery when it comes to the ebmx and the electronics. So I may end up going to another battery. I'm trying to hold off for this E-Ride Senior to get here. As soon as it releases, I know I'll turn my focus to getting one of those and modding it. But I want to have this bike to a certain level. I wanted to have it kind of like it is with a fork before I got the next bike, because I want to put supermoto wheels on this when that bike shows up and make that bike a dedicated woods only. And I'm hoping this wheel set will fit that bike. If it does, I'll put the supermoto wheel set on this, and then I'll move these wheels to that bike. If not, oh well, I'll buy a new wheel set. But man, I'm excited for that bike, because this bike, I felt like it was better, but I'm starting to miss the 1916 wheel setup fill up. It made the bike feel a little smaller. So if I want a small bike, I think I will put this back on 1916s. But if I have this as my big woods bike, it's going to stay on the 1821. And I'll probably go to a better rear tire. I have said that I didn't want to, but if I'm going to do woods only with that tire, it's got to be better. I want a full-on, like Nick just got a Michelin that's supposedly the cat's meow. I want the same thing that fits this swing arm. So we're supposed to do some winter building. Nick and I are going to do some powder coating. I don't think I'm going to change the color on this from red, but we'll definitely do some stuff. This is what I went to. I used to have a cell phone holder up here that was kind of in the way, where I held my cell phone for GPS. I went away from that. I went to, this is an armband I got from Amazon. My phone just goes in there so I can see it while I'm riding. I can use my gauges for my ebmx. It'll show speedo and power output and stuff on there. I can use my GPS. It's out of the way. And if I want to charge it, it's not super, far from the cable. It actually will help with some battery rattle if you do have it, because I put it across the mount, so it sandwiches it. Really like that. It's something different. You can't use it the best with gloves, but I mean, you get to take your phone with you wherever you go, and you don't have to worry about it getting destroyed, because when Nick wrecked with his phone mount up here, it broke his mount, not his phone. I've wrecked 2 or 3 times with my phone up here, and it bends it over because I left it loose enough. But a matter of time before I broke a $1,000 iPhone. So putting it here is I'm a little more comfortable. I do have the Warp 9 pegs. Excuse my BMX lingo, but the ebmx splash shield or bash guard, it's not bad. Kind of thought it would be a little thicker but it works, so no complaints. Let's see. Don't have the brakes installed yet. Kickstand. I don't have a kickstand. My other bike, I went right to the kickstand, the other E-Ride. This one I didn't. For what it cost, I don't have a ton of issues with the big front tire. This tire, the rear tire actually measures shorter than the factory 19 setup, CST. So that's probably why I don't have the issue. With the K-stand, I'm probably going to go to a longer one just because I think it's time. But I was kind of going to wait and do the billet kickstand and rear sets and everything. So I will update this video again after I get the brakes installed and I can decide how I'm going to do the rear brakes, because the brakes I got are pretty trick. I like to try stuff, if it's cheap and I think it'll work, I'll send it. And I got these coming from China. Kind of felt scammy, so we'll see if they really do show up. I talked to the people about possibly selling them as a brand. I would like to sell parts, that's kind of what I did growing up for a living. Is I've always been in the parts industry and the automotive industry, so I'd like to kind of have a ebmx, BMX, bicycle racing kind of shop where I could, sell parts, and obviously would sell parts only that we use and try, and, You know, anything like that I believe would work from China, I'd buy it in bulk and private label it. And that way everybody knows what's safe and you can run. Because some of this stuff, just like this headlight, it's a headlight from China. I got it on Amazon and it is terrible. So that is something, even if I sold that brand, I wouldn't carry that light. I would stick to that. I would only sell what we race and what we use. So if I was familiar with the brand or if it's something that sponsored our team, I would, you know, we'll carry it because it's something that we run. Can't think of any other things that are updated on this thing. The bars, the risers, light, the ebmx, the thumb regen. The thumb throttle is amazing. It's people, I think it's slept on. I think ebmx is doing a good thing by keeping it at 20-25% because my back wheel doesn't lock up, and that's kind of what I didn't want. I like that. I didn't want it to lock up and become erratic. All right, here is the light. So I don't know if you can see, but it's got some reflection over here, and a spotlight. Now that's the yellow, which you can see. So it's not terrible, but I've had much better with the Baja design. The Baja design was way more fuller of a light. You didn't have the gap here. The spotlight was okay, but I just don't like the gap around it. I'd rather it be more taller, I guess is what I'm looking for, so I can put it across the trail and up. So I don't know. You guys can see for yourself what you think, but I don't particularly care for it because that just seems very dark in here, but I could just be being picky.